The power of your subconscious mind. You are not living the life you want because you are not thinking the thoughts that create it. Your subconscious mind is the hidden engine behind every result you have. Your income, your relationships, your confidence, your health. It does not care what you wish for. It produces what you repeatedly believe. Right now, it is either programmed for limitation or programmed for power. And until you take control of that programming, nothing changes. Today, you stop hoping. Today, you start reprogramming. Chapter 1. Accept this first. Your mind is creating your reality. Let's begin with something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Your mind is creating your reality. Not your boss, not the economy, not your parents, not your past. Your mind. Accept this first, because until you do, nothing changes. Every outer result you are experiencing right now is a reflection of an inner belief. Every single one. If money is inconsistent, belief is inconsistent. If confidence disappears under pressure, identity is unstable. If relationships keep collapsing, there is a pattern running underneath your awareness. The outer world follows the inner code. Say it again. The outer world follows the inner code. You don't get what you want, you get what you are programmed for. That's not mystical, that's mechanical. Your subconscious mind operates like software. It runs scripts, and those scripts determine behavior, perception, risk tolerance, self-worth, and expectation. You may consciously desire success, but if your subconscious script says, "People like me don't win," you will sabotage the opportunity the moment it appears. That's not bad luck, that's programming. You have a choice. You can continue arguing with circumstances, or you can examine the code. Most people blame. Blame is easy. Blame keeps the ego comfortable, but blame keeps you powerless.
Ownership is power. The moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What belief is creating this?" control returns. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. That's the shift. Look at your finances. If income rises and falls in cycles, that is not random. Somewhere in your identity is a belief about worth, about limits, about what feels normal. And your subconscious will fight to keep you inside that range. Look at your confidence. Are you bold until someone challenges you? Strong until criticized? That means your self-image depends on approval, and the subconscious protects identity at all costs. It's not about talent, it's about identity. That's the key. You must understand something critical. The subconscious mind does not argue, it executes. It does not analyze your statements for accuracy. It does not debate your emotional outbursts. It simply records repetition and turns it into instruction. I'm bad with money. Instruction accepted. I always mess things up. Instruction accepted. I'm just not confident. Instruction accepted. And then you wonder why the pattern repeats. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need ideal conditions, but you do need awareness, because awareness exposes the script. Right now, I want you to think about one recurring frustration in your life, just one, something that keeps showing up. Now ask yourself, what would I have to believe about myself for this to keep happening? Be honest. If you constantly undercharge for your work, you might believe, "I'm not worth more." If you tolerate disrespect, you might believe, "This is what I deserve." If you procrastinate on opportunities, you might believe, "If I try and fail, it proves I'm inadequate." The behavior is not random, it is loyal to the belief. The outer world follows the inner code. This is why two people can face the same circumstance and produce entirely different outcomes. One sees rejection as feedback, the other sees it as confirmation of worthlessness. Same event, different belief, different reality.
It's not about circumstances, it's about conditioning. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Your subconscious prefers familiarity over success. Let that sink in. If struggle is familiar, it will recreate struggle. If chaos is familiar, it will recreate chaos. If being overlooked is familiar, it will recreate invisibility. Why? Because identity seeks consistency. The subconscious mind's primary job is to keep your identity stable, not to make you successful, not to make you wealthy, not to make you admired. Stable. If you see yourself as the one who struggles, you will unconsciously make decisions that confirm that story. You have a choice. You can protect the old identity or you can build a new one. But understand this, until you accept that your mind is creating your reality, you will try to change results without changing identity, and that never lasts. People try to change income without changing money beliefs. They try to change relationships without changing self-worth. They try to change productivity without changing self-image.
And when the effort collapses, they say, "See, it never works for me." That statement becomes the next instruction. The subconscious does not argue, it executes. That's the key. So what do? First, you stop labeling yourself carelessly. No more "I'm just" statements. No more casual self-criticism disguised as humor. No more identity anchored in limitation. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline, mental discipline. Every time you catch yourself reinforcing a limitation, you interrupt it. You say, "Cancel." Then you replace it, not with fantasy, with direction. Instead of "I'm bad at speaking," you say, "I am developing confidence in speaking." Instead of "I never stick to things," you say, "I am building consistency daily." Why? Because repetition instills belief, and belief drives behavior, and behavior creates results. The outer world follows the inner code. Let's get practical. For the next 7 days, I want you to monitor your self-talk like a security guard monitors a gate. No negative identity statements pass through unchallenged. You have a choice. You can let the old script run unconsciously, or you can confront it. When something goes wrong, notice your first thought. Is it a self-attack? Is it blame? Is it resignation? That first thought reveals the program. Most people try to fix behavior, but behavior is the surface. Belief is the root. If you pull weeds without removing the root, they return. If you correct behavior without changing belief, the pattern returns. It's not about effort, it's about alignment. That's the key. And here is another truth you must accept. Your subconscious responds to what you repeatedly feel, not just what you say. If you verbally declare confidence but emotionally rehearse doubt, the emotional rehearsal wins. Emotion stamps belief. So when you review your life patterns, don't just analyze logic, analyze emotion. Where do you feel small? Where do you feel undeserving? Where do you feel like an imposter? That emotional signature is the blueprint. But here's the empowering part. If emotion can install limitation, it can install power. You have a choice. You can rehearse inadequacy, or you can rehearse capability. You can replay past failures, or you can mentally practice future victories. Because your subconscious does not know the difference between vividly imagined experience and physical reality. It only knows repetition and emotional intensity. That means your future can be programmed before it arrives. But it starts here, with ownership, with the declaration, "My mind is creating my reality." No excuses, no blame, no waiting. You don't need their permission to upgrade your identity. You don't need validation to think differently. You don't need evidence before you begin. You need a decision, and the decision begins with acceptance. Accept that the patterns in your life are not random. Accept that repeated outcomes reveal repeated beliefs. Accept that your subconscious is executing instructions you have been giving it for years. The outer world follows the inner code. Burn that into your mind, Because once you accept this, you stop fighting shadows and start rewriting scripts. And rewriting scripts changes behavior. Changing behavior changes results. And changing results reinforces a new belief. That is the cycle of transformation. But it starts with responsibility. It's not happening to me, it's happening from me. Say it again. It's not happening to me, it's happening from me. This is not about guilt, it's about power. When it's happening to you, you are a victim. When it's happening from you, you are a creator. And creators can change their creations. That's the key. Today, you stop negotiating with circumstances. Today, you start interrogating beliefs. Because this entire book rests on this foundation. The subconscious mind is the silent architect of your life. You can ignore it, you can misunderstand it, or you can master it. You have a choice. Accept this first. Your mind is creating your reality. And once you truly accept that, you are ready to understand the mechanism behind it. You've accepted responsibility. Now you must understand the machine itself. Chapter 2. The subconscious mind never sleeps. Your subconscious mind never sleeps. Not when you're awake, not when you're tired, not when you're distracted, not even when you are physically asleep. It is always recording, always processing, always storing. That's not poetic, that's literal. Every comment you heard as a child, every moment of embarrassment, every time someone said, "You're not good at that," every time you whispered to yourself, "I'm not enough," stored, filed, indexed, and repeated. You may not consciously remember the moment, but your subconscious does, and it builds identity from repetition. That's the key. You think you're reacting to the present, most of the time you're reacting to stored memory. A boss gives feedback. You don't hear information, you hear criticism. Why? Because somewhere in your past, criticism was linked to rejection. That emotional imprint is still active. The subconscious mind never sleeps. It records everything. And what it records repeatedly becomes belief. Not intelligence, not talent, not potential. Repetition. What you hear most becomes what you accept as truth. If a child hears "you're irresponsible" enough times, that becomes identity. If an adult repeats "I'm terrible with money" for 10 years, that becomes financial behavior. You have a choice. You can pretend your patterns are random, or you can recognize they were installed. Most people live as if their personality is fixed. It's not fixed. It's familiar. And the subconscious protects what is familiar. Let's go deeper. The subconscious mind operates below awareness, but it controls above-average behavior. It influences tone of voice, posture, risk tolerance, persistence, and even what opportunities you notice. Have you ever seen someone walk into a room and command attention without saying a word? That's identity broadcasting. Have you ever seen someone shrink the moment they are questioned? That's identity broadcasting. The subconscious never sleeps. It is constantly projecting who you believe you are. That's why transformation is not about hype. It's about programming. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. Mental discipline. Right now, your internal dialogue is running all day long. You comment on traffic. You comment on your appearance. You comment on your performance. You comment on other people's success. And every comment is a seed. Every thought is a seed. Say it again. Every thought is a seed. Seeds do not look powerful when planted, but over time they become forests. The problem is not one negative thought. The problem is repeated negative thoughts. You say, "I'm exhausted" every afternoon. You say, "This never works out for me" every setback. You say, "I'm just not confident" every opportunity. You think you're venting. You're programming. The subconscious does not detect sarcasm. It does not detect exaggeration. It detects repetition, and it builds accordingly. That's the key. Let's make this practical. For the next 24 hours, I want you to track your internal dialogue, not casually, seriously. Carry a notebook if you must. Open a note on your phone. Every time you criticize yourself, write it down. Every time you predict failure, write it down. Every time you label yourself in a limiting way, write it down. You will be shocked. Because most of your programming is not dramatic, it's subtle. I'm so awkward. I always forget things. I'm not disciplined. I hate networking. I'm bad at confrontation. These are not descriptions, they are instructions. The subconscious mind never sleeps, so while you are casually speaking, it is carefully installing. You have a choice. You can continue careless repetition, or you can install deliberate belief. Let me ask you something directly. If someone followed you around all day and repeated every negative statement you make about yourself, would you allow that person to stay in your life? Of course not. But you allow your own voice to do it constantly. You don't need their permission to think differently. You don't need validation to change your language. You need awareness and discipline. It's not about perfection, it's about interruption. When you catch a negative identity statement, interrupt it immediately. Not later, immediately. Say, stop, then replace it. Not with fantasy, with direction. Instead of, I'm terrible at sales, say, I am learning to improve my sales skills. Instead of, I'm always late, say, I am building punctual habits. Instead of, I'm not confident, say, I am developing certainty. Why? Because repetition creates belief, and belief drives action, and action creates evidence, and evidence reinforces belief. That cycle is happening right now, whether you control it or not. You have a choice.
You can let it reinforce the limitation, or you can redirect it toward growth. That's the key. Now, understand something else. The subconscious not only records your words, it records your emotional reactions. When you fail and immediately feel shame, that emotional spike stamps the event deeper. When you succeed but brush it off, that success is not emotionally installed. So here's another discipline. Amplify your wins. When something goes well, pause, feel it, acknowledge it. Say, this is who I am becoming. Emotion locks it in. If failure can be emotionally rehearsed, so can progress. The subconscious never sleeps, so feed it deliberately. Most people consume content all day long, news, social media, conversations filled with complaints, and then they wonder why their mental state feels heavy, because repetition creates belief. If you hear, the economy is collapsing 50 times a day, your subconscious installs fear. If you hear, opportunities are everywhere repeatedly, your subconscious installs expectancy. It's not about denial, it's about selection. Guard your inputs. It's not about ignorance, it's about discipline. That's the key. You must become selective about what you allow to repeat in your mental environment. What music do you listen to? What conversations do you tolerate? What jokes do you make about yourself? What narratives do you replay at night? Because the subconscious mind never sleeps. Even as you drift into sleep, it continues processing the final thoughts you were holding. So here's another instruction. End your day intentionally. Before sleep, do not replay embarrassment. Do not replay frustration. Do not rehearse anxiety. Rehearse direction. Visualize who you are becoming. Speak affirmations quietly. Feel certainty. Why? Because the last thought before sleep sinks deep. Every thought is a seed. Plant deliberately. You have a choice. You can wake up tomorrow with the same mental script, or you can begin editing it tonight. And understand this: editing takes repetition too. One positive thought does not erase 10 years of conditioning. This is not about motivation, it's about conditioning. You brush your teeth daily. Why? Because plaque builds daily. Mental plaque builds daily too. Negative repetition accumulates, so you must clean it daily. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline, daily discipline. Interrupt, replace, repeat. Interrupt, replace, repeat. That is how belief shifts. And once belief shifts, behavior follows. You will start speaking differently in meetings. You will start taking calculated risks. You will start setting boundaries. You will start noticing opportunities you once ignored. Because your subconscious will begin filtering reality differently. Remember, the subconscious does not create events. It influences perception and reaction. Two people see the same opportunity. One sees risk, the other sees growth. Different repetition, different belief, different result. That's the key. So stop saying, "That's just how I am." That sentence is mental surrender. Instead say, "That's how I've been conditioned." Conditioning can be changed. You don't need their permission to upgrade your conditioning. You don't need approval to shift your internal dialogue. But you do need commitment. The subconscious mind never sleeps. So if you do not consciously program it, the world will. Advertising will. Fear will. Past pain will. Other people's opinions will. You have a choice. Program yourself or be programmed by default. And here's the empowering truth. Once you understand that repetition creates belief, you control the lever.
You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to control what repeats. Control what you say daily. Control what you rehearse mentally. Control what you emotionally amplify. Every thought is a seed. Plant confidence, plant discipline, plant growth, plant resilience. Water it with repetition. Because the subconscious never sleeps, and it is always building something. The only question is, are you choosing what it builds? That awareness connects directly back to our foundation. Your mind is creating your reality, and it is doing so continuously, whether you participate or not. Now that you understand it never sleeps, the next step is even more critical. You must stop feeding it what you don't want. You understand the recording mechanism. Now it's time to control the message.
Chapter 3. Stop speaking what you fear. Your words are not casual. They are commands. Every sentence you repeat about yourself is an instruction issued to your subconscious mind, and your subconscious does not debate. It does not analyze tone. It does not check for sarcasm. It executes. That's the key. When you say, "I'm broke," your subconscious hears identity. When you say, "I'm anxious," your subconscious hears identity. When you say, "I'm terrible at this," your subconscious hears identity. These are not descriptions, they are instructions, and instructions repeated often enough become reality. You have a choice. You can keep narrating your fear, or you can start directing your future. Most people don't realize how often they speak what they fear. They call it venting, they call it honesty, they call it realism. But the subconscious does not care about your justification. It cares about repetition. Let me ask you something directly. How many times have you said, "I can't afford that"? How many times have you said, "This is too hard"? How many times have you said, "I always mess this up"? Each repetition deepens the groove. Each statement strengthens the script. And then you wonder why the pattern feels permanent. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. Verbal discipline. You must understand something powerful. Words carry emotional weight, and emotion accelerates programming. The more frustration you attach to a statement, the deeper it embeds. When you slam your hand on the desk and say, "Nothing ever works for me," that emotional spike brands the belief.
When you sigh heavily and whisper, "I'm just not good enough," that sadness locks it in. Emotion is glue. That's the key. So now we go deeper. It's not only what you say when things are calm, it's what you say when you are stressed. Stress reveals programming. When something goes wrong, your first reaction is the clearest indicator of belief. Do you say, "Here we go again"? Do you say, "Why does this always happen to me"? Do you say, "I knew I'd fail"? That is not a coincidence. That is conditioning speaking out loud. And every time you speak it, you reinforce it. You have a choice. You can react automatically, or you can respond intentionally. This chapter is about one core transformation. Replace reaction with declaration. Stop reacting from fear, start declaring direction. Instead of "this is hard," say "I am growing." Instead of "I'm overwhelmed," say "I am organizing." Instead of "I can't do this," say "I am learning how to do this." Speak what you seek. Say it again. Speak what you seek. Your words should reflect where you are going, not where you are stuck. But let's be clear. This is not about lying to yourself. It's about directing yourself. There is a difference. If your bank account is low, don't pretend you're wealthy. You stop declaring poverty as identity. Instead of "I'm broke," say "I am building financial discipline." Instead of "I'm bad with money," say "I am improving my money management." See the shift? It's not about denial, it's about direction. That's the key. Here's the behavioral instruction. For the next 30 days, eliminate identity-based negative language. No more "I am" statements tied to limitation. You can describe a situation, but you do not attach it to who you are. "I made a mistake" is acceptable. "I am a failure" is not. "I feel anxious right now" is awareness. "I am an anxious person" is an identity installation. One describes a moment, the other programs a future. You have a choice. Choose carefully. Now let's address another habit, exaggeration.
I always mess this up. This never works. Everyone is better than me. These are emotional exaggerations, and your subconscious takes them literally. If you say "always" enough times, your mind searches for evidence to confirm "always." If you say "never" enough times, your mind filters out exceptions. It's not about reality, it's about reinforcement. That's the key. Your subconscious is constantly scanning for evidence to support your dominant language. So if your dominant language is defeat, your perception will highlight defeat. If your dominant language is growth, your perception will highlight opportunity. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcome. Outcome reinforces belief, and the cycle continues. You have a choice. Interrupt the cycle at the language level, because language is the steering wheel. Let's make this practical. Starting today, when something goes wrong, pause before speaking. Pause. That pause is power. In that pause, ask yourself, am I about to speak fear or direction? Then choose. You don't need their permission to speak differently. You don't need approval to change your vocabulary. You need discipline. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. You may feel frustrated, fine, but you do not let frustration dictate identity statements. You may feel nervous, fine, but you do not let nerves define you. You may feel uncertain, fine, but you do not speak permanence over temporary emotion. That's maturity. That's leadership. And that's self-programming. Speak what you seek. Now let's go deeper. Words also influence how others respond to you. If you constantly say, "I'm not sure," people will treat you as unsure. If you constantly say, "I'll try," people will hear hesitation.
I always mess this up. This never works. Everyone is better than me. These are emotional exaggerations, and your subconscious takes them literally. If you say always enough times, your mind searches for evidence to confirm always. If you say never enough times, your mind filters out exceptions. It's not about reality, it's about reinforcement. That's the key. Your subconscious is constantly scanning for evidence to support your dominant language. So if your dominant language is defeat, your perception will highlight defeat. If your dominant language is growth, your perception will highlight opportunity. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcome. Outcome reinforces belief, and the cycle continues. You have a choice. Interrupt the cycle at the language level, because language is the steering wheel. Let's make this practical. Starting today, when something goes wrong, pause before speaking. Pause. That pause is power. In that pause, ask yourself, am I about to speak fear or direction? Then choose. You don't need their permission to speak differently. You don't need approval to change your vocabulary. You need discipline. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. You may feel frustrated. Fine. But you do not let frustration dictate identity statements. You may feel nervous. Fine. But you do not let nerves define you. You may feel uncertain. Fine. But you do not speak permanence over temporary emotion. That's maturity. That's leadership. And that's self-programming. Speak what you seek. Now, let's go deeper. Words also influence how others respond to you. If you constantly say, "I'm not sure," people will treat you as unsure. If you constantly say, "I'll try," people will hear hesitation.
Replace weak language with decisive language. Instead of "I'll try," say "I will." Instead of "maybe," say "Here's what I suggest." Instead of "I hope," say "I expect." This is not arrogance, it's clarity. And clarity strengthens identity. That's the key. When your language becomes decisive, your posture changes, your tone changes, your energy changes, and people respond differently. That response becomes new evidence. That evidence reinforces belief, and suddenly confidence feels natural. All because you changed what you spoke. You have a choice. Now let's address private speech, the conversations you have alone, because that is where the real programming happens. In the car, in the shower, lying in bed. What are you rehearsing? Arguments? Failures? Worst-case scenarios? Stop. Stop speaking what you fear, because rehearsal creates familiarity, and familiarity creates comfort, and comfort creates repetition. If you constantly rehearse rejection, rejection feels normal. If you constantly rehearse success, success begins to feel familiar. That's the key. Familiarity reduces fear. So rehearse what you want. Speak what you seek. In the morning, declare direction. This is a day of growth. I move with confidence. I create opportunity.
Say it out loud. Why out loud? Because spoken words carry weight. They activate emotion. They reinforce focus. You are not chanting magic. You are conditioning the mind. And conditioning requires repetition. You have a choice. Repeat fear or repeat growth. And understand this clearly. Silence can be more powerful than negativity. If you cannot speak something empowering in the moment, say nothing. Do not narrate failure. Do not broadcast insecurity. Do not joke about your limitations. Silence is better than self-sabotage. You don't need their permission to be silent. You don't need to explain your doubts publicly. Guard your language. Guard your future. Because your subconscious is listening to every word, even whispers. And as we established in the previous chapter, it never sleeps. It is always recording. So let your recordings be intentional. Let your words align with your direction. Let your declarations reflect your desired identity. You have a choice. Every sentence is a fork in the road. One path reinforces fear. The other reinforces growth. Choose growth. Choose discipline. Choose direction. Because your words are not decoration. They are construction. They are building the architecture of your life in real time. Speak what you seek. Burn that into your mind. Speak what you seek. When you master your language, you begin to master your belief. And when you master belief, you begin to master behavior. And when you master behavior, you begin to master results. This is how you take control of the subconscious mind, not through hope, through discipline. Not through motivation, through repetition. Not through wishing, through declaring. You have stopped speaking what you fear. Now it's time to understand what accelerates belief even faster than words. You've controlled your language. Now let's control the emotional engine behind it.
Chapter 4. Emotion is the accelerator. You can repeat a thought 1,000 times, but if you do not feel it, it will not stick. Emotion is the accelerator. That's the key. Logic informs. Emotion installs. You can logically understand that you are capable. You can logically understand that an opportunity exists. You can logically understand that your past does not define you. But if you emotionally feel inadequate, your subconscious will obey the feeling, because the subconscious speaks emotion, not logic. Let's make this simple. Why does trauma rewire someone instantly? One event, one moment, one emotional spike, and the belief is installed. I am not safe. I am not good enough. I cannot trust. No repetition over the years required. Just intensity. Emotion stamps belief. That's the key. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. If emotion can install fear that quickly, it can install power just as quickly. But most people never use emotion intentionally. They use emotion accidentally. They rehearse embarrassment with intensity. They replay rejection with intensity. They imagine worst-case scenarios with intensity. And then they wonder why fear feels natural. You have a choice. You can continue emotionally rehearsing what you don't want, or you can begin emotionally rehearsing what you do want. Feel it before you see it. Say it. Feel it before you see it. If I can feel it, I can build it. This is not fantasy. This is conditioning. Athletes understand this. Before they step onto the field, they close their eyes and mentally rehearse victory. They see the shot landing. They feel confident. They experience the win internally before the event happens externally. Why? Because familiarity reduces hesitation. When the moment arrives, it does not feel foreign. It feels rehearsed. The subconscious responds to what feels familiar. That's the key. Right now, success might feel unfamiliar to you. Wealth might feel unfamiliar. Leadership might feel unfamiliar. Confidence might feel unfamiliar. And the subconscious resists unfamiliar states. So what do? You make them familiar internally before they appear externally. You emotionally rehearse the version of you that already exists at that level. Not casually, intentionally. Here is the discipline. Every morning, spend 5 minutes visualizing your future self. not as a vague image, as a vivid experience.
Where are you standing? How are you speaking? How are you walking? How do you feel in your body? Feel the certainty. Feel the calm. Feel the capability. If I can feel it, I can build it. That's the key. But here is where most people fail. They visualize without emotion. They see a car, they see a house, they see applause, but they do not feel identity. The goal is not to feel excitement about things. The goal is to feel alignment with identity, because identity drives behavior. You're not trying to emotionally attach to objects. You're trying to emotionally attach to who you are becoming. That's the shift. If you want to be disciplined, feel the pride of discipline. If you want to be confident, feel the steadiness of certainty. If you want to be financially stable, feel the calm of control. Emotion must match identity. That's the key. Now let's address another powerful truth. Your body does not know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Think about the last time you imagined something embarrassing. Your heart rate changed, your face reacted, your stomach tightened. Nothing was happening, but your body responded. That is power. And you have been using it against yourself for years, imagining worst-case outcomes, imagining failure, imagining rejection. Stop. Stop accelerating fear. You have a choice. Use imagination to rehearse limitation, or use imagination to rehearse expansion. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline, emotional discipline. When anxiety begins rising, do not let it spiral unchecked.
Pause. Shift the image. Instead of seeing yourself failing the presentation, see yourself speaking clearly. Instead of seeing yourself being rejected, see yourself being respected. Instead of seeing yourself falling short, see yourself adapting and overcoming. And feel it. Feel the calm. Feel the certainty. Feel the control. If I can feel it, I can build it. Now understand this clearly. Emotion without action is delusion, but emotion paired with action is momentum. Visualization is not a replacement for effort. It is preparation for effort. Athletes still train, leaders still practice, entrepreneurs still execute, but emotional rehearsal reduces resistance. It reduces hesitation. It reduces self-sabotage. That's the key. Here's another discipline. When you achieve something small, amplify the emotion. Finished a workout? Feel pride. Closed a sale? Feel gratitude. Handled a conflict maturely? Feel strength. Do not brush it off. Emotionally stamp progress. Because what gets emotionally reinforced gets repeated. You have a choice. Minimize your wins and emotionally magnify your failures, or emotionally magnify your growth and neutralize your setbacks. Choose wisely. Most people intensify pain and minimize progress. Flip that pattern. That's transformation. Now let's talk about fear.
Fear is simply an emotion attached to imagined loss. You can use the same mechanism to create anticipation attached to imagined growth. Instead of fearing embarrassment, anticipate mastery. Instead of fearing rejection, anticipate alignment. Instead of fearing loss, anticipate learning. You don't need their permission to feel powerful. You don't need validation to feel worthy. You choose your emotional focus. That's the key. And here is something critical. Gratitude is one of the fastest emotional accelerators available. Why? Because gratitude signals already received. When you feel grateful for growth that is unfolding, your subconscious interprets that as confirmation. It strengthens belief. So every night, list 3 things you are grateful for, but feel them, not mechanically, emotionally. Gratitude for your resilience. gratitude for your effort, gratitude for your opportunity. Emotion deepens belief. Belief directs action. Action produces result. Result reinforces belief, and the cycle strengthens. You have a choice: accelerate doubt or accelerate certainty. That's the key. Let's go deeper. Emotion also influences how others experience you. When you feel secure internally, your tone stabilizes. When you feel confident internally, your movements slow down. When you feel certain internally, your words become decisive. People respond to their emotional state before they respond to logic. So if you want different reactions from the world, change your internal emotional baseline. Rehearse calm. Rehearse strength. Rehearse certainty. If I can feel it, I can build it. Say it again.
If I can feel it, I can build it. This is how you move from theory to embodiment. Because the subconscious does not respond to what you occasionally think. It responds to what you repeatedly feel. Make confidence familiar. Make discipline familiar. Make success familiar. And once it feels familiar, it stops feeling intimidating. That's the key. Now understand the bigger picture. Your mind is creating your reality. Your subconscious never sleeps. Your words are commands, and emotion is the accelerator. You are not powerless. You are untrained. And training requires repetition. Daily visualization, daily emotional rehearsal, daily amplification of progress. You have a choice: drift emotionally through the day, or direct your emotional state intentionally. It's not about mood, it's about discipline. Discipline over emotion, because when you control emotion, you control belief. And when you control belief, you control behavior. And when you control behavior, you control results. This is the formula. Feel it before you see it. If I can feel it, I can build it. Burn that into your mind, because in the next chapter, we go deeper. You've learned to accept responsibility. You've learned your mind never sleeps. You've learned to control your words. You've learned to harness emotion. Now it's time to address the foundation underneath all of it, because emotion accelerates belief, but belief is rooted in something even deeper: identity.
Chapter 5. Identity controls behavior. You do not outperform your self-image. Read that again. You do not outperform your self-image. You can set bigger goals. You can buy new planners. You can download productivity apps. You can attend seminars. But if your identity says, "I am inconsistent," your behavior will return to inconsistency. That's the key. Behavior follows identity, not motivation, not pressure, not temporary excitement. Identity. If you see yourself as undisciplined, you will sabotage discipline, not because you are weak, but because your subconscious protects identity at all costs. And understand this clearly. The subconscious would rather keep you small than allow you to feel inconsistent with who you believe you are. That's powerful. If your self-concept is, "I'm the quiet one," you will hold back even when you have something valuable to say. If your self-concept is, "I'm not good with money," you will avoid learning financial skills. If your self-concept is, "I'm not leadership material," you will shrink when responsibility appears. You have a choice: protect the old identity or upgrade it, but you cannot do both. That's the key.
Most people try to change behavior without changing identity. They say, "I want to wake up earlier," but they still believe, "I'm not a morning person." They say, "I want to get in shape," but they still believe, "I've never been athletic." They say, "I want to grow my income," but they still believe, "People like me don't make that kind of money."
And the subconscious hears the dominant belief. It executes accordingly. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. Identity discipline. Let's go deeper. Your identity is simply the story you repeat about yourself. That story becomes familiar. Familiar becomes safe. Safe becomes protected. So when you attempt to grow beyond your identity, discomfort appears. Not because growth is wrong, but because growth threatens consistency. And the subconscious values consistency more than expansion. That's the key. Have you ever started improving your life only to feel strange, almost guilty, almost exposed? That's identity friction. If you are used to being overlooked, being praised feels uncomfortable. If you are used to struggling, ease feels suspicious. If you are used to chaos, calm feels boring. The subconscious tries to pull you back to familiar territory. You have a choice. Return to familiar discomfort or tolerate temporary identity friction until growth becomes normal. Growth requires discomfort, but that discomfort is not proof that you are wrong. It is proof that you are upgrading. That's the key.
So how do you upgrade identity? First, stop using permanent labels. I am lazy. I am bad with money. I am socially awkward. I am unlucky. These are identity anchors, and anchors keep you in place. Instead, shift to directional identity. I am becoming disciplined. I am learning financial control. I am building confidence. I am developing leadership. Say it. I am becoming disciplined. I am becoming powerful. Repeat until natural. Because repetition installs identity, and identity directs behavior. You don't need their permission to become someone new. You don't need approval to redefine yourself, but you do need commitment. Let's make this practical. Write down the identity you want to embody in 3 areas: health, wealth, and relationships. Not goals, identity. For example, health. I am someone who honors my body daily. Wealth. I am someone who manages money wisely. Relationships. I am someone who communicates clearly and confidently. Now ask yourself a powerful question. What would someone with this identity do today? Not next year, today. Would they hit snooze? Would they overspend impulsively? Would they avoid difficult conversations? Probably not. Identity simplifies decisions. That's the key. When identity is clear, discipline becomes easier because you are not forcing behavior, you are expressing identity. It's not about willpower, it's about alignment, and alignment reduces resistance. Now let's address sabotage. When people begin succeeding, they often self-sabotage. They miss deadlines, they pick fights, they procrastinate. Why? Because their current success conflicts with their old identity. If you secretly believe you are not worthy of success, you will unconsciously destroy it. That's not a weakness, that's programming, and programming can be changed. You have a choice. Stay loyal to your past identity or become loyal to your future identity. But understand this, your future identity must be emotionally rehearsed. You cannot simply declare it once. You must live into it daily. Stand like it, speak like it, decide like it, even before evidence appears. That's the key. And yes, it will feel unnatural at first. That is normal, because the unfamiliar feels uncomfortable. But repetition makes the unfamiliar familiar. And once it feels familiar, it feels natural. Then it becomes automatic. Would they hit snooze? Would they overspend impulsively? Would they avoid difficult conversations? Probably not. Identity simplifies decisions. That's the key. When identity is clear, discipline becomes easier.
Because you are not forcing behavior, you are expressing identity. It's not about willpower, it's about alignment. And alignment reduces resistance. Now let's address sabotage. When people begin succeeding, they often self-sabotage. They miss deadlines, they pick fights, they procrastinate. Why? Because their current success conflicts with their old identity. If you secretly believe you are not worthy of success, you will unconsciously destroy it. That's not a weakness, that's programming. And programming can be changed. You have a choice. Stay loyal to your past identity or become loyal to your future identity. But understand this, your future identity must be emotionally rehearsed. You cannot simply declare it once, you must live into it daily. Stand like it, speak like it, decide like it, even before evidence appears. That's the key. And yes, it will feel unnatural at first. That is normal, because the unfamiliar feels uncomfortable. But repetition makes the unfamiliar familiar. And once it feels familiar, it feels natural. Then it becomes automatic.
And once it becomes automatic, it becomes you. That's transformation. Now here is a discipline you must adopt. Stop introducing yourself with limitations, even privately. Stop saying, "That's just how I am." No, that's how you've been, not who you must remain. It's not about personality, it's about conditioning, and conditioning can be reconditioned. You have a choice. When you catch yourself acting from an old identity, pause. Ask, is this aligned with who I am becoming? If not, adjust immediately. Not tomorrow, immediately. Because every small action either reinforces the old identity or installs a new identity. There is no neutral. That's the key. Now understand something empowering. You don't need massive success to shift identity. You need consistent micro-evidence. If you want to become disciplined, start with one promise kept daily. 1. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you started. Go to the gym when you planned. Small consistency builds self-trust. Self-trust strengthens identity. Identity simplifies discipline. And discipline creates results. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Now let's address external influence. Other people may still see you as your old identity. They may say you've changed. They may question your growth. They may try to pull you back. You don't need their permission to evolve. You are not responsible for their comfort. You are responsible for your alignment. That's the key. When you begin acting from an upgraded identity, some relationships will shift. That is normal, because you are no longer matching old expectations. But growth requires separation from limitation. Choose growth. You have a choice. Now let's anchor this deeply. Say this out loud. I do not outperform my self-image. Say it again. I do not outperform my self-image. So if you want new results, build a new self-image. Daily affirmations are not empty when they are paired with action. Say, I am disciplined, then act disciplined in small ways. Say, I am confident, then speak up once more than usual. Say, I am financially responsible, then track your spending today. Identity plus action equals reinforcement. Reinforcement equals belief. Belief equals behavior. Behavior equals results. Results equal new identity, and the cycle strengthens upward. That's the key. You are not stuck. You are patterned, and patterns can be rewritten. You have a choice. Stay who you have been or become who you decide to be. But remember this, your subconscious protects identity at all costs, so make sure it is protecting the right one. Upgrade identity first. Everything else follows. Because your mind is creating your reality. Your subconscious never sleeps. Your words are commands. Emotion accelerates belief, and identity directs behavior.
You are building the foundation brick by brick. Now that you understand identity, we must talk about the force that installs it more than anything else: repetition.
Chapter 6. Repetition is the law. Not talent, not luck, not genetics. Repetition. The mind learns through consistent exposure. That's the key. Whatever you expose your mind to repeatedly, it accepts. Whatever it accepts, it believes. Whatever it believes, it acts on. And whatever it acts on consistently becomes your life. Repetition rewires reality. Say it. Repetition rewires reality. Again, repetition rewires reality. Daily affirmations are not magic, they are conditioning. Reading goals once is not transformation. Writing them daily is. Listening to one motivational speech will not change you. Training your mind every morning might. You have a choice. Expose your mind to doubt or expose your mind to discipline. Expose your mind to fear or expose your mind to power. Because the mind does not argue with repetition, it absorbs it. That's the key. If you say, "I'm bad with money" long enough, you will become bad with money. If you say, "I'm always tired" long enough, your body will follow. If you say, "Nothing works for me," your brain will find proof. Repetition builds belief. Belief directs behavior. Behavior creates results. Results reinforce belief. That loop is always running.
The only question is, what are you repeating? You have a choice. Now understand this clearly. Consistency beats intensity. 5 minutes every day rewires more than 1 hour once a week. One disciplined action daily beats a dramatic burst once a month. It's not about intensity, it's about discipline. That's the key. Intensity feels powerful. Consistency is powerful. Intensity is emotional. Consistency is structural, and structure wins. Let's make this practical. If you want confidence, don't wait for a big stage. Speak up once a day. Ask one question. Share one opinion. Hold eye contact 1 second longer. Small repetition builds identity. If you want financial control, don't obsess once a year. Track your spending daily. 5 minutes, that's it. If you want a strong body, don't rely on occasional extreme workouts. Move every day, even if it's 10 push-ups, even if it's a 10-minute walk. Consistency beats intensity. Repetition rewires reality. Now let's go deeper. The brain is a prediction machine. It strengthens what you repeat. Neural pathways that fire together wire together. You don't need to understand neuroscience to use it. You just need to respect it. Your mind does not care whether repetition is positive or negative. It only cares about frequency. If you repeatedly criticize yourself, self-doubt becomes automatic. If you repeatedly visualize success, confidence becomes familiar. If you repeatedly avoid discomfort, fear becomes stronger. Repetition is neutral. You decide the direction. You have a choice.
And most people lose because they underestimate small daily actions. They wait for motivation. They wait for perfect timing. They wait for a dramatic transformation. But transformation is quiet. It is daily. It is boring. It is repetitive. That's the key. You don't become powerful in one decision. You become powerful in repeated decisions. You don't become disciplined in one day. You become disciplined over repeated days. So stop chasing the dramatic. Start respecting the daily. Now here's the truth. You are already repeating something every day. You repeat thoughts, you repeat routines, you repeat reactions. The question is not whether repetition exists, it's whether it serves you. Repetition rewires reality. Say it again. Repetition rewires reality. Now let's talk about affirmations. Some people dismiss them. They say that's fake. They say that's delusion. No, it's conditioning. If you repeat, "I am becoming disciplined" daily, your brain begins scanning for evidence. You act slightly differently. You make slightly better choices. You interrupt old patterns faster. That's how identity shifts.
Not overnight. Over repetition. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. The flaw is inconsistency. The discipline is repetition. Now listen carefully. Your environment is repeating messages to you constantly. Social media repeats comparison. News repeats fear. Certain friends repeat the limitation. If you do not consciously choose repetition, the world will choose it for you. And you don't need their permission to filter your inputs. Guard your mind. Audit what you hear daily. Audit what you say daily. Audit what you think daily. Because repetition builds identity, and identity controls behavior. Now, let's build a structure. Here's your daily repetition framework. Morning, identity installation. Repeat 3 identity statements out loud. I am becoming disciplined. I am becoming powerful. I finish what I start. Feel them, even if they feel unnatural, especially if they feel unnatural. That tension means growth. Midday, behavioral alignment. Ask one question. What would the person I am becoming do right now? Then do that, even in small form. Night, evidence collection. Write down 3 actions that align with your future identity. Not massive wins, aligned actions. This builds self-trust. Self-trust strengthens belief. Belief simplifies discipline. That's the key. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, 10 minutes a day. Consistency beats intensity. Repetition rewires reality. Now understand something powerful. Repetition does not require emotion. You don't have to feel inspired. You just have to show up. Emotion will follow structure. Most people wait to feel ready, but readiness is a product of repetition. The first gym session feels awkward. The 50th feels normal. The first sales call feels terrifying. The 100th feels routine. Repetition reduces resistance. That's the key. And here's where tough love comes in. If you say you want change, but you cannot commit to 5 minutes daily, you don't want change. You want comfort. You have a choice. Comfort now or confidence later. Discomfort now or discipline later. But you cannot avoid repetition. Even avoidance is repetition. Avoiding the gym repeatedly builds the identity of someone who quits. Avoiding hard conversations repeatedly builds the identity of someone who hides. Avoiding risk repeatedly builds the identity of someone who plays small. Repetition is always at work, so put it to work for you. Rehearse who you are becoming. Visualize the upgraded version of you daily. See how they stand, see how they speak, see how they decide, and then rehearse it mentally. Because the brain does not fully distinguish between vivid imagination and lived experience. Athletes use this. Leaders use this. You can use this. Repetition rewires reality. Now let's eliminate a lie. I tried that once. Once is not repetition. I did it for a week. A week is a start, not a standard. You brush your teeth daily. Why? Repetition. You lock your door automatically. Why? Repetition. You can build discipline the same way, but only if you treat it as non-negotiable, not optional, not emotional, non-negotiable. That's the key. Decide one behavior that represents your future identity. 1. Commit to it for 30 days. No negotiation,
No excuses. Miss one day? Reset immediately. Not next Monday, immediately, because speed of correction matters. Repetition plus correction equals mastery. Now imagine this: 1 year of daily repetition, 365 small aligned actions. That is not small. That is transformation.
You won't recognize yourself, but you must respect the process, and respect means discipline. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. Now I want you to anchor this deeply. Say it with conviction. Repetition rewires reality. Again, repetition rewires reality. This is law, not opinion, law. You cannot escape it. You can only choose how it works for you. You have a choice. Repeat doubt or repeat discipline. Repeat excuses or repeat execution. Repeat fear or repeat faith. But choose consciously, because the subconscious listens to what you repeat most, and it builds accordingly. You are building something every day. Make sure you are building the right identity.
Chapter 7. Guard your mental environment. Your environment is not neutral. It is shaping you. Every conversation, every notification, every song, every headline. Your surroundings shape subconscious belief. That's the key. You think you are choosing your thoughts, but most of your thoughts are reactions to what surrounds you. If you sit in negativity long enough, negativity becomes normal. If you sit in ambition long enough, growth becomes normal. Environment installs identity. Identity controls behavior. Behavior creates results. This is not random. This is a structure. You have a choice. Let your environment shape you by default, or design it deliberately. But understand this clearly. Negative people normalize limitation. They make small thinking sound practical. They disguise fear as realism. They call discipline obsession. They call ambition greed.
And if you stay long enough, you begin to agree. Not because you are weak, because you are human. Repetition rewires reality, and the environment is repetitive. That's the key. On the other side, ambitious people normalize growth. They talk about goals casually. They discuss investments over dinner. They treat discipline like a standard. They don't glorify excuses. They glorify execution. Stay in that environment long enough, and growth stops feeling extreme. It feels expected. You have a choice. Choose proximity to limitation or proximity to expansion. But you cannot expect a powerful mind in a polluted environment. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. The discipline to filter access. Now let's talk about media. Media is programming. Every scroll is a suggestion. Every video is a model. Every headline is a perspective. What you consume becomes a mental reference. If you constantly consume drama, your brain expects drama. If you constantly consume outrage, your brain looks for threats. If you constantly consume luxury without effort, your brain expects reward without discipline. And that gap creates frustration. Guard your inputs. That's the key.
Ask yourself a hard question. Does what I consume daily make me stronger or weaker? Does it increase clarity or distraction? Does it normalize growth or gossip? You have a choice, but you must choose consciously, because if you don't, the algorithm will choose for you. And the algorithm is not designed for your growth. It is designed for your attention. Attention is currency, and you are spending it carelessly. Stop. Your mind is an asset, protected like one. You lock your doors at night. Why? Protection. You use passwords on your bank account. Why? Protection. But you let anyone speak into your mind, anyone message you, anyone influence your mood. That is undisciplined. Access to me is earned. Say it. Access to me is earned. Again, access to me is earned. That is not arrogance, that is self-respect. You don't need their permission to create boundaries. You don't need approval to protect your focus. You have a choice. Now let's get practical. First, audit your circle. List the 5 people you spend the most time with. How do you feel after interacting with them? Energized, inspired, focused, or drained, doubtful, distracted? Patterns don't lie. If someone constantly reinforces your old identity, distance may be required.
Not hatred, distance. Because proximity influences perspective. That's the key. Second, audit your digital diet. Track 1 week of consumption. Hours scrolling, topics consumed, emotional state after. Be honest. If you consume 3 hours of distraction and 5 minutes of growth, your results will reflect that ratio. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. 5 minutes of intentional input daily can shift your thinking dramatically. Replace one scroll session with a book. Replace one gossip conversation with a growth conversation. Replace background noise with educational audio. Small shifts. Repeated daily. Repetition rewires reality. Now let's talk about tolerance. What you tolerate becomes your standard. If you tolerate disrespect, you normalize it. If you tolerate laziness in your circle, you normalize it. If you tolerate chaos in your space, you normalize it. Your physical environment matters too. Cluttered desk, cluttered mind, disorganized schedule, disorganized execution. Clean your space. Organize your tools. Create visual reminders of who you are becoming. The environment is not just people. It is physical cues. It is lighting. It is sound. It is an order. Design it intentionally. That's the key.
If you want to write, create a writing space. If you want to train, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to think clearly, reduce noise. Make discipline easier through design. Stop relying on willpower. Engineer your environment. You have a choice. Now here is the uncomfortable truth. Some relationships will not survive your growth. Because when you elevate standards, insecure people feel judged. Even if you say nothing, even if you remain kind, your discipline highlights their excuses, and that makes them uncomfortable. You don't need their permission to evolve, but you do need courage. Courage to outgrow environments, courage to say no, courage to protect your focus. Access to me is earned. Anchor that. You are not available for constant negativity. You are not available for endless distraction. You are not available for small thinking. This is not ego. It is a strategy. Because the environment is the silent architect of identity, and identity controls behavior. Now ask yourself, what environments am I currently tolerating that contradict who I am becoming? Be specific. Is it a friend group, a workplace culture, a digital habit? Identify it. Then take one action this week, one boundary set, one app deleted, one conversation is limited.
One space reorganized. Action builds clarity. Clarity builds confidence. Confidence strengthens identity. That's the key. And remember this, you cannot always control where you start, but you can control what you consume. Even in a negative workplace, you can control your headphones. Even in a limited household, you can control your reading. Even in a chaotic season, you can control your morning routine. Small protected windows of focus compound. Repetition rewires reality. Guard those windows fiercely. Now let's elevate this further. Become the standard in your environment. When you walk into a room, bring discipline, bring calm, bring clarity. You influence others too. Your consistency can shift a room, but only if it is stable, only if it is repeated. That's the key. You are not a victim of environment unless you choose to be passive. You have a choice. Design your circle, design your inputs, design your space, design your standards. Because the mind absorbs what surrounds it, and over time, you become what you repeatedly experience. Access to me is earned. Say it again.
Access to me is earned. Let that guide your decisions. Not emotion, not guilt. Discipline. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. Discipline in who you allow close. Discipline in what you consume. Discipline in what you tolerate. Because if you protect your environment, you protect your identity. If you protect your identity, you protect your behavior. If you protect your behavior, you protect your future. That is structure. That is power. And that is your responsibility. No one else will do it for you. You don't need their permission. You need your commitment. You upgraded your identity. You installed it through repetition. Now you understand that the environment either reinforces or erodes it. Guard it. Protect it. Engineer it. Because in the next chapter, we confront the force that tests everything you've built. Discomfort.
Chapter 8. The Power of Assumption. Your mind does not wait for proof. It moves on an assumption. That's the key. The subconscious accepts assumed truth, not confirmed truth, assumed truth. If you assume rejection, you behave insecurely. If you assume success, you behave confidently. If you assume people don't respect you, you shrink. If you assume you belong, you expand. Assumption precedes evidence. Say it. Assumption precedes evidence. Again. Assumption precedes evidence. Most people are waiting for evidence before they believe. They say, once I see results, I'll feel confident. No. Once you feel confident, you'll create results. That's the key. Your behavior follows your dominant assumption, not your potential, not your talent, your assumption. If you walk into a room assuming no one cares what you have to say, your body tightens, your voice lowers, your eye contact breaks. And guess what? People respond to that energy. They hesitate, they disengage, and you call it proof. But it was an assumption. You created the evidence you feared. You have a choice. Assume limitation or assume alignment.
Because your subconscious does not debate your assumptions, it executes them. That's the key. Let's make this practical. Imagine two people walking into the same job interview. Same qualifications, same opportunity. One assumes they probably won't pick me. The other assumes they'd be lucky to have me. Who speaks with certainty? Who maintains composure? Who answers with conviction? The assumption shaped the behavior. The behavior shaped the outcome. Assumption precedes evidence. Now, understand this deeply. Your assumptions are often unconscious. You don't say them out loud, but you feel them. You carry them, and your body reflects them. If you assume money is hard to earn, you hesitate to ask for more. If you assume relationships always fail, you guard your heart. If you assume success changes people, you sabotage growth. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. The discipline to choose your assumptions. Because you do have a choice. You may not control every circumstance, but you control the meaning you assign to it. And meaning becomes assumption. Assumption becomes behavior. Behavior becomes reality. That's the key. Now let's challenge something. Why do you assume the negative so easily? Protection. Your mind thinks it's keeping you safe. If I expect rejection, I won't be disappointed. If I expect failure, I won't be embarrassed. But that strategy costs you growth. It keeps you small. It keeps you cautious. It keeps you average. And the average is expensive. You don't need their permission to assume success. You don't need validation to believe you are capable. Belief is a decision, not a reaction. Assumption precedes evidence. Now, let's elevate this concept. Act from the result, not toward it. Speak and move as if alignment already exists. That does not mean delusion. It means embodiment. If you are building a business, stop speaking like someone trying. Speak like someone building. If you are improving your health, stop speaking like someone hoping. Speak like someone committed. Language reveals assumptions. Pay attention to your words. I'll try. I hope. Maybe. These are weak assumptions. Replace them. I will. I am. I choose. That's discipline. It's not about arrogance. It's about alignment. You have a choice. Now, let's make it behavioral. If you assumed you were already disciplined, how would you wake up tomorrow? Would you negotiate with your alarm, or would you move immediately?
If you assumed you were already confident, how would you enter your next conversation? Would you apologize for your opinion, or would you state it clearly? If you assumed financial growth was inevitable, how would you manage money today? Would you spend impulsively or invest intentionally? Act from belief, not toward it. Say it. I act from belief, not toward it. Again, I act from belief, not toward it. This is where most people hesitate. They say, but I don't feel it yet. Feeling follows action. Confidence is built through congruence. When your actions align with your chosen assumption, belief strengthens. When your actions contradict your chosen assumption, doubt grows. So stop waiting to feel ready. Act ready. That's the key. Now, let's address fear. Assuming success does not eliminate fear. It overrides it. Fear says, what if you fail? Assumption says, I'll figure it out. Fear says, what if they judge you? Assumption says, my growth matters more. You have a choice. Feed fear or feed belief. But understand this, both require imagination. If you can imagine rejection vividly, you can imagine success vividly. Direct your imagination. That's discipline. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. Now, here's a powerful exercise. Before any serious situation, ask yourself, what would I do right now if I knew this would work out? Not if it might, if it would. Then do that. Send the message. Make the call. Submit the proposal. Have the conversation. Assumption precedes evidence. Now let's go deeper. Your posture communicates an assumption. Your tone communicates an assumption. Your pace communicates an assumption. Slow down your speech. Stand taller. Maintain eye contact. These physical shifts signal belief to your brain. Embodiment accelerates assumption. Your body teaches your mind. That's the key. You are not pretending. You are practicing. Rehearsing who you are becoming, and repetition rewires reality. You've learned that already. Now apply it here. Assume alignment daily. Assume growth daily.
Assume resilience daily, because the subconscious does not know the difference between a rehearsed truth and a repeated fear. It accepts what you consistently project. You have a choice: project doubt or project direction, but stop drifting. Drifting is an unconscious assumption. Conscious assumption is power. Now let's eliminate one more excuse. Isn't this fake? No,
It's intentional. You already assume things unconsciously. You assume how people see you. You assume what you deserve. You assume what is possible. Most of those assumptions were installed by past experiences, by environment, by repetition. Now you are choosing them deliberately. That is growth. You don't need their permission to redefine what you expect. Raise your internal standard. Assume you are capable of more. Assume discipline is normal for you. Assume growth is your default. And then behave accordingly. Small, aligned actions reinforce the assumption, and the assumption strengthens the action. Upward spiral. That's the key. Now anchor this deeply. I act from belief, not toward it. Say it again. I act from belief, not toward it. This is not fantasy. It is strategy. Elite performers use it. Leaders use it. Athletes use it. They visualize victory before it happens. They assume capability before proof appears. And then they move. Not recklessly, confidently, because assumption precedes evidence. If you wait for proof, you will wait forever, because proof responds to behavior, and behavior responds to belief. So choose the belief first. Choose the assumption first.
Then execute. You have a choice: live reactively or live intentionally. Assume fear or assume faith. Assume limitation or assume expansion. But understand this: your life is reflecting your dominant assumptions. If you want new results, upgrade what you assume. Right now. Not later. Not when it feels comfortable. Now. Stand differently. Speak differently. Decide differently. Act from belief, not toward it. Because when assumption aligns with identity, and identity aligns with repetition, transformation becomes inevitable. You are not waiting for reality to change. You are shaping it from the inside out. And that leads us to the final force that determines whether all of this compounds or collapses: your standards.
Chapter 9. Release the past to reclaim power. You cannot build a powerful future while clinging to a painful past. You cannot step into a new identity while replaying an old injury. That's the key. Old emotional wounds anchor old identities. Resentment reinforces limitation. Read that again. Resentment reinforces limitation. You say you want growth. You say you want discipline. You say you want confidence. But if your mind is still rehearsing betrayal, failure, embarrassment, rejection, you are feeding the old identity. And identity controls behavior. You have a choice: keep reliving what hurt you, or release it and reclaim your power. But you cannot do both. That's the key. Let's be honest. Some of what happened to you was unfair. Some of it was painful. Some of it left marks. This is not about denying that. It's about deciding what role it plays now. Because pain is an event.
Suffering is repetition, and repetition rewires reality. If you repeat the memory daily, you strengthen the emotional charge. If you strengthen the emotional charge, you strengthen the identity attached to it. I'm the one who was betrayed. I'm the one who failed. I'm the one who was overlooked. And the subconscious protects that identity at all costs. You have a choice. Protect the wound or protect your future. That's the key. Resentment feels powerful. It feels justified. It feels like control. But it is a leash. You think you are holding on to the past. In reality, the past is holding on to you. Every time you replay the story, you reinforce it. Every time you retell it, you relive it. Every time you relive it, you re-anchor it. And anchored pain limits expansion. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. The discipline to stop rehearsing what no longer serves you. Now let's define something clearly. Forgiveness is not approval. Forgiveness is not saying what you did was okay. Forgiveness is mental liberation. It frees cognitive and emotional space for new programming. That's the key.
When you hold resentment, part of your mental bandwidth is occupied. Part of your emotional energy is trapped, and energy trapped in the past cannot build the future. Release and rise. Say it. Release and rise. Again, release and rise. This is not a weakness. This is a strategy. If someone wronged you years ago and you still think about it weekly, they are still influencing your behavior. They are still shaping your emotional state. They are still controlling your internal dialogue, and they may not even know it. You have a choice. Continue giving them rent-free space in your mind, or reclaim that space, because your mind is an asset. Guard it. You've already learned that. Now apply it here. Old emotional wounds create defensive behavior. If you were betrayed, you assume betrayal. If you failed publicly, you assume embarrassment. If you were criticized harshly, you assume judgment. Assumption precedes evidence. So you behave cautiously. You hold back.
You self-sabotage. Not because you are incapable, because you are protecting an old wound. That's the key. Protection feels safe, but it blocks growth. You cannot build a new future while replaying old pain. You cannot claim a new identity while rehearsing an old narrative. Release and rise. Now let's make this practical. First, identify the story you keep telling. What event do you bring up repeatedly? What moment still triggers emotion? Write it down. Not to dwell, to confront. Second, identify the identity attached to it. Did it make you believe you are not enough, not lovable, not capable, not safe? Be honest, because hidden identity drives visible behavior. That's the key. Third, separate the event from the meaning. The event happened. The meaning is what you assigned, and meaning can be changed. You have a choice. Keep the old meaning or assign a new one. Instead of, that failure proves I'm incapable, shift to, that failure trained me. Instead of, they betrayed me because I'm not enough, shift to, they acted from their limitation. Reframing is not delusion. It is discipline.
It is choosing a meaning that empowers rather than imprisons. Release and rise. Now let's address responsibility. This is where tough love comes in. At some point, continuing to suffer from an old event becomes a decision. Yes, the event was real, but replaying it is optional. You don't need their permission to move on. You don't need an apology to heal. You don't need their closure to create closure within yourself. That's the key. Waiting for someone else to fix your emotional state keeps you powerless. Power returns when you decide, this stops here. Not because it didn't hurt, but because my future matters more.
You have a choice: revenge or release, bitterness or breakthrough. But you cannot carry both ambition and resentment at full strength. One will dilute the other. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline, emotional discipline. Now understand this deeply. Your nervous system remembers emotional intensity. If you don't consciously calm and reprocess it, it reacts automatically. So when something reminds you of the old event, your body tenses, your tone changes, your decisions shrink. That is programming. And programming can be rewritten through repetition,
Through new experiences, through conscious release. Here is a powerful exercise. Close your eyes and visualize the event. See it clearly. Then imagine yourself stepping outside of it. Observe it from a distance, not inside the pain, outside it. Now say, "That happened. It shaped me, but it does not define me." Repeat it. "That happened. It shaped me, but it does not define me." This is identity separation. You are not your worst moment. You are not your deepest wound. You are the decision maker moving forward. Release and rise. Now, let's go further. Sometimes the person you need to forgive is yourself, for mistakes, for missed opportunities, for poor decisions. Self-condemnation is just internalized resentment, and it anchors the old identity. If you keep saying, "I should have known better," you stay tied to that version of you. But growth requires self-permission. You don't need your past self's perfection. You need your present self's discipline. Forgive yourself, not to erase the lesson, but to apply it. That's the key.
You cannot build confidence while secretly punishing yourself. You cannot assume success while assuming guilt. Release and rise. Now anchor this. Say it again. Release and rise. One more time. Release and rise. Releasing is not forgetting. It is refusing to let the memory dictate your identity. It is refusing to let resentment script your behavior. It is choosing the future over familiarity. Because pain, when repeated long enough, becomes familiar. And familiar feels safe, even when it limits you. You have a choice. Stay familiar with pain or become familiar with growth. Growth may feel uncomfortable at first, but discomfort is temporary. Regret is permanent. That's the key. Let go of the narrative that keeps you small. Let go of the anger that keeps you distracted. Let go of the shame that keeps you silent. Because your mind needs space to install new identity, new repetition, new assumptions. And that space is created by release. Release and rise. This is power. Not loud power, quiet power. The power to decide that the past no longer gets a vote. The power to say, "That chapter shaped me, it does not control me." You have a choice.
And every time you choose release, you reclaim energy. Every time you reclaim energy, you strengthen identity. Every time you strengthen identity, you simplify discipline. And discipline builds destiny. That is the structure of transformation. You have upgraded your identity. You have installed it through repetition. You have guarded your environment. You have chosen empowering assumptions. Now you clear the final obstacle, the weight of the past. Because a powerful future requires emotional space, and you just created it. Release and rise. Now that you've reclaimed your power from yesterday, it's time to direct it toward tomorrow with precision.
Chapter 10. Discipline your inner conversation. You are speaking to yourself all day. All day. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, there is a voice narrating your life. commenting, judging, predicting, remembering. And most of it is automatic. That's the problem. Because automatic thinking creates automatic results. That's the key. If you do not discipline your inner conversation, it will discipline you. It will tell you what you can't do. It will remind you of who you used to be. It will replay old failures. It will exaggerate small setbacks. And if you don't challenge it, you will obey it. You have a choice. Let your mind run unchecked or take command. Awareness is the beginning of control. Without awareness, there is no power. You cannot change what you refuse to notice, so start noticing. Notice every self-limiting phrase immediately. I'm not good at this. This always happens to me. I'll probably mess this up. They're better than me. I'm just not that type of person. These are not harmless thoughts. They are instructions, and your subconscious executes instructions. That's the key. Most people think their thoughts are facts. They're not. They are interpretations, and interpretations can be replaced, but only if you catch them. So, here is your first discipline. Observation without emotion. When a negative thought appears, don't panic. Don't judge yourself. Don't spiral. Simply label it. That's a limiting thought. That distance creates control. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts. That's power. You have a choice. Now comes the second discipline. Interrupt and replace. Cancel negative thoughts. Insert an empowering directive immediately. Not later, not after you feel better. Immediately. If you think, I can't handle this, interrupt it.
Say, I am capable of learning this. If you think, this is too hard, interrupt it. Say, this is building me. If you think, I'm behind, interrupt it. Say, I move at my own disciplined pace. This is not a delusion. It is mental training. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline, mental discipline. Because here's the truth. If you let one negative thought sit, it invites another, and another, and another. Soon it becomes a narrative, and narratives become identity. Identity controls behavior. You've learned that. Now apply it here. Your inner conversation is either reinforcing your future or defending your past. You have a choice. Now, let's go deeper. Pay attention to tone, not just content. Is your inner voice harsh, sarcastic, impatient? Would you speak to someone you love that way? Probably not. So why accept it internally? You don't need their permission to speak to yourself with authority instead of abuse. Replace criticism with correction. There is a difference. Criticism says, you're terrible at this. Correction says, adjust your approach. Criticism attacks identity. Correction refines behavior. That's the key. When you miss a workout, don't say, I'm so lazy. Say, that choice didn't align with who I'm becoming. Adjust. When you make a mistake at work, don't say, I'm incompetent. Say, that's feedback. Improve.
See the shift? Same situation, different internal command. And commands shape behavior. Mental discipline creates external freedom. Read that again. Mental discipline creates external freedom. Because when you control your internal dialogue, you control your emotional state. When you control your emotional state, you control your reactions. When you control your reactions, you control your results. That's the structure. Now here's where most people fail. They try to eliminate negative thoughts. That's unrealistic. Thoughts appear automatically. Control comes from response, not prevention. So when doubt appears, you don't collapse, you counter. When fear whispers, you respond. When insecurity rises, you redirect. That's discipline. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. Now let's build a daily mental protocol. Morning. Before checking your phone, before checking messages, install direction. Say it out loud. I choose my thoughts. I choose my future. Again. I choose my thoughts. I choose my future.
Feel it. Midday. When stress rises, pause. Take one breath. Ask, what thought is driving this feeling? Identify it. Replace it. Night. Before sleep, review the day. Where did your inner conversations support you? Where did it sabotage you? No shame, just awareness. Awareness is the beginning of control. That's the key. Now, let's address something uncomfortable. Some of your negative inner dialogue was inherited from parents, from teachers, from past authority figures. You absorbed their tone, their judgments, their fears, and now you replay them internally. But hear this clearly. You don't need their permission to change the script. You don't need to keep a voice that weakens you. You can fire that voice. You can replace it with your own, deliberate, focused, disciplined. You have a choice. Now understand this. Your brain believes what you repeat with emotion. If you constantly say, I'm overwhelmed, your nervous system stays tense. If you constantly say, I can handle this, your nervous system stabilizes. Language regulates physiology. Physiology influences performance.
So guard your language, internally and externally. No more dramatic exaggeration, no more catastrophic predictions, no more identity-based insults. Replace them with directives. Clear, firm, forward-focused. Because your inner conversation is a rehearsal, and rehearsal becomes reality. If you rehearse failure internally, you hesitate externally. If you rehearse confidence internally, you execute externally. That's the key. Now, I want you to imagine this. Two versions of you facing the same challenge. One says, internally, this is impossible. I always mess things up. The other says, this is uncomfortable. I'll adapt. Which one persists? Which one grows? Which one builds momentum? The difference is not talent. It is a conversation. Mental discipline creates external freedom. Anchor that. You have a choice. When something goes wrong today, notice the first thought. Is it blame? Excuse?
Self-attack or ownership? Redirection or solution? Choose consciously. Now let's strengthen this further. Adopt trigger phrases. When doubt arises, say to yourself, redirect. When fear spikes, say, steady. When distraction pulls you, say, focus. Short, commanding, clear. Your mind responds to clarity. That's the key. And remember this. The goal is not to become positive. The goal is to become powerful. Powerful thinkers are not naive. They are disciplined. They don't deny reality. They decide their response to it. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. If your inner conversation has been chaotic for years, expect resistance at first. Your brain will try to return to familiar patterns, but repetition rewires reality. You already know that, so repeat the replacement again and again and again until the new voice becomes automatic, until strength becomes natural, until discipline becomes the default. You are installing a new operating system, one thought at a time. Say it with conviction. I choose my thoughts. I choose my future. Again, I choose my thoughts. I choose my future. This is not motivational fluff. This is mental architecture. You are building the internal structure that supports everything else.
Identity, repetition, environment, assumption. All of it collapses if your inner voice contradicts it. So align it, guard it, discipline it.
Because when your internal world is ordered, your external world follows. Mental discipline creates external freedom. And freedom is not the absence of responsibility, it is the result of self-control. You've rebuilt your identity. You've installed it through repetition. You've guarded your environment. You've chosen empowering assumptions. You've released the past. Now you control the conversation that sustains it all. You are no longer reacting. You are directing. You are no longer drifting. You are deciding. And that decision, repeated daily, becomes destiny. You have a choice. Choose disciplined thought. Choose intentional language. Choose powerful internal leadership. Because the final chapter is not about theory, it's about execution. Chapter 11. Become the standard. At some point, you stop chasing standards. You become one. That's the shift. That's the key. Most people spend their lives reacting to expectations. They meet minimum requirements. They follow trends. They copy what's popular. They compare constantly. But leaders don't chase standards. They set them. And now it's your turn. You have a choice. Live according to what's common or live according to what's excellent. But understand this clearly. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. If you tolerate mediocrity in your habits, that becomes your identity. If you tolerate inconsistency in your word, that becomes your reputation. If you tolerate laziness in your thinking, that becomes your future. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. The discipline to raise your personal standard. Because once you know better, average is a decision. That's the key. You've rebuilt your identity. You've trained repetition. You've guarded your environment. You've chosen empowering assumptions. You've disciplined your inner conversation. Now you elevate your baseline, not occasionally, always. Becoming the standard means this. You don't negotiate with your principles. You don't perform only when watched. You don't depend on external pressure. You execute because that's who you are. That's the key. Standards remove debate. When your standard is clear, decisions become simple. If your standard is physical discipline, you train. If your standard is integrity, you tell the truth. If your standard is excellence, you finish strong. No drama, no excuses, no overthinking. You have a choice. Lower the standard when it's inconvenient or rise to it when it's uncomfortable. Because discomfort is the entrance fee to excellence. Now let's go deeper. A standard is not a goal. A goal is something you reach. A standard is something you live. Goals are temporary. Standards are permanent. Most people set goals without raising standards. They want a better body without a higher nutrition standard. They want more money without a higher productivity standard. They want better relationships without a higher communication standard. That disconnect creates frustration because results rise only to the level of standards. That's the key. If you want lasting change, raise the floor, not just the ceiling. Raise what you tolerate from yourself, daily. Here's a practical framework. Choose 3 non-negotiables, 3 behaviors that define your new baseline. For example, 1, I keep my word to myself. 2, I move my body daily. 3, I speak to myself with discipline. Simple, clear, non-negotiable. These are not dependent on mood, not dependent on circumstances. They are identity anchors, and identity controls behavior. You have a choice. Be emotionally driven or be standard driven. Emotion says, I don't feel like it. Standard says, this is what I do. Emotion says, just this once. Standard says, that's not aligned. That's the key. Now listen carefully. When you raise your standard, people will notice.
Some will respect it. Some will resist it.
Because your discipline exposes their inconsistency. Your growth highlights their stagnation, and that can create tension. But you don't need their permission to evolve. You don't shrink to make others comfortable. You rise to stay aligned. Becoming the standard means you become predictable in excellence. People know what to expect from you. Focus, integrity, execution, calm under pressure. That consistency builds trust, and trust builds influence. But influence is a byproduct. The real reward is self-respect. Because when you know you operate at a higher standard, you walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. That's the key. Now, let's eliminate a myth. High standards are not perfectionism. Perfectionism is fear disguised as control. Standards are clear. Perfectionism says, if it's not perfect, I won't start. Standards say, I start and refine. Perfectionism avoids risk. Standards embrace responsibility. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline.
Discipline to act even when imperfect. Discipline to correct quickly. Discipline to stay consistent. Now here's a hard truth. Every time you break your own standard without correction, you weaken self-trust. Self-trust is everything. Without it, confidence collapses. Without it, identity fractures. So when you fall short, and you will, correct immediately. Not next week, not next month, immediately. That speed of correction preserves the standard. You have a choice: excuse the slip or reinforce the standard. That's the key. Now let's talk about energy. Becoming the standard requires conservation. You cannot operate at a high level while constantly distracted. Guard your time, guard your focus, guard your commitments. Say no more often, not rudely, clearly. Because every yes to something misaligned is a no to your standard. Access to you is earned. You learned that. Now apply it fully. Your calendar reflects your standard. Your habits reflect your standard. Your conversations reflect your standard. Audit them. Be honest.
Where are you tolerating less than you claim to want? Where are you compromising repeatedly? Where are you drifting? Awareness is the beginning of control. That's the key. Now imagine this. 1 year from now, someone describes you. What do they say? Disciplined, reliable, focused, powerful, or inconsistent, emotional, unpredictable, passive. That description is being built today through standard, through repetition, through discipline. You have a choice. Now anchor this phrase: I am the standard. Say it. I am the standard. Again.
I am the standard. Not because you're perfect, but because you are consistent. Because you are aligned. Because you correct quickly. Because you don't negotiate with your growth. That internal commitment changes everything. You stop asking, is this good enough? You start asking, is this aligned with my standard? That question filters behavior instantly. That's the key. When you become the standard, comparison loses power. You're not competing emotionally, you're executing personally. You're not reacting to trends, you're anchored in principle. That stability creates freedom. Mental discipline creates external freedom. You've seen that, and standards sustain it. Now here is the final integration. Identity tells you who you are becoming. Repetition installs it. The environment reinforces it. Assumption energizes it. Release clears space for it. Inner conversation sustains it. Standard
protects it. This is a structure. This is a transformation. This is power, and power is not loud. It is disciplined.
It is consistent. It is self-led. You have a choice. Remain average or become the standard. Not someday, now. Because the life you want is not waiting for motivation, it is waiting for alignment. And alignment begins the moment you decide, I no longer negotiate with my potential. That's the key. Stand firm, execute daily, correct quickly, raise the bar again and again until excellence is normal, until discipline is automatic, until your presence alone communicates strength. You are no longer building confidence, you are embodying it. You are no longer chasing change, you are living it. You are the standard. And when you live as the standard, your life stops being accidental. It becomes intentional. Which brings us to the final evolution, not just becoming the standard, but designing a life that reflects it fully.
Final chapter. Live fully. Live intentionally. This is where it all comes together. Not in theory, not in motivation, in execution. You've rebuilt your identity. You've trained repetition. You've redesigned your environment. You've chosen empowering assumptions. You've released the past. You've disciplined your inner conversation. You have become the standard. Now you live it, fully, intentionally. Because discipline without direction is empty, power without purpose is unstable, and growth without intention drifts. That's the key. Living fully is not about doing more, it's about doing what matters. Living intentionally is not about control, it's about clarity. Most people are busy, few are aligned. Most people react, few decide. You have a choice. Drift through your days or design them. And design requires a decision. Let's get honest. If someone audited your calendar, your bank account, your conversations, and your habits, would they see intention or would they see a reaction? Would they see a person building deliberately or surviving passively? No judgment, just awareness. Awareness is the beginning of control. That's the key. Living fully means you are present, not half-invested, not distracted, not constantly escaping into noise. When you're working, you work. When you're resting, you rest. When you're with someone, you're there, fully. Because fragmented attention creates fragmented results. You have a choice. Scroll mindlessly or engage meaningfully. Numb yourself or develop yourself. Avoid discomfort or build capacity. That's the key. Now understand something critical. Intentional living requires elimination. You cannot live fully while overloaded with what doesn't matter. You cannot operate at a high level while tolerating constant distraction. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. The discipline to remove, the discipline to say no, the discipline to protect your time. Here's your first instruction. Audit your life in 4 categories. 1. Health. 2. Relationships. 3. Work. 4. Growth. For each category, ask one question. Is this aligned with who I said I am? If not, adjust. Not dramatically, deliberately. That's the key. Living intentionally means your values are visible.
Not spoken, visible. If you say health matters, your habits reflect it. If you say family matters, your time reflects it. If you say growth matters, your calendar reflects it. Alignment builds peace. Misalignment builds tension. Most stress is not from pressure, it's from contradiction. You say one thing, you live another. That internal conflict drains power.
You have a choice. Continue the contradiction or correct it now, immediately. That's the key. Let's talk about presence. Presence is power. When you are fully engaged, your energy shifts. People feel it. Opportunities respond to it. Confidence grows from it. But presence requires mental discipline. You cannot be present if your inner conversation is chaotic. You cannot live fully if your attention is fractured. So here's your second instruction. Create daily reset moments. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. No phone, no noise, just awareness. Ask, what mattered today? What didn't? What will I do differently tomorrow?
That simple practice builds intentional momentum. Small corrections, daily. That's the key. Now, let's go deeper. Living fully means taking ownership of your emotional state. No more blaming circumstances. No more blaming people. No more waiting for ideal conditions. You don't need their permission to feel powerful. You don't need perfect timing to move forward. You have a choice. React emotionally or respond intentionally. Reaction is automatic. Response is disciplined. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Emotions are natural, but leadership over them is trained. When frustration hits, pause. When fear rises, breathe. When anger spikes, step back. Then decide. That pause is power. That's the key. Now, understand this. Living fully does not mean constant happiness. It means full engagement. It means you step into challenges instead of shrinking from them. It means you accept responsibility instead of avoiding it. It means you pursue growth instead of comfort. Comfort is seductive, but comfort is not fulfillment. Comfort numbs. Growth expands. You have a choice. Seek comfort or seek expansion. Expansion builds capacity. Capacity builds confidence.
Confidence builds freedom. That's the key. Let's talk about time. Time is not your enemy. Distraction is. You say you don't have time, but you do have priorities. Time reveals them. If you want to live intentionally, schedule what matters. Don't hope for it. Plan it. Block it. Protect it. Whether it's training, learning, building, connecting, put it on the calendar and treat it like a non-negotiable meeting with your future, because that's what it is. You have a choice. Leave your future to chance or schedule it. That's the key. Now let's address fear one final time. At every new level, fear reappears. Fear of visibility, fear of responsibility, fear of failure, fear of success. Yes, success. Because success demands maintenance. It demands consistency. It demands a standard. But remember this, you mastered fear earlier. You do not eliminate it, you outgrow it.
You don't need their permission to rise. You don't need universal approval to expand. You need courage. And courage is a decision repeated daily. That's the key. Living fully also means contribution. You are not building strength only for yourself. You are building it to elevate others. Your discipline sets examples. Your integrity builds trust. Your growth creates permission for others to grow. But again, you don't need their permission to lead. You lead by example, quietly, consistently, powerfully. Now imagine this. 5 years from now, you look back at this moment. Did you drift? Or did you decide? Did you consume? Or did you create? Did you hesitate? Or did you execute? That future version of you is shaped by today's discipline, not today's intentions, not today's feelings, today's actions. It's not about desire, it's about discipline. Desire without action is fantasy. Discipline creates reality. That's the key. Now I want you to internalize this phrase. I live on purpose. Say it. I live on purpose. Again. I live on purpose.
Purpose is not a mystical discovery. It is alignment in action. When your daily behavior matches your chosen identity, you are living on purpose. No grand announcement required, just consistency. Now, here's your final practical structure. Each week, define 3 priorities. Only 3. If everything is important, nothing is. 3 outcomes that move your life forward. Write them down. Review them daily. Execute them relentlessly. At the end of the week, evaluate. Did you move or did you drift? Adjust accordingly. This is how intentional lives are built. Not through intensity, through consistency. You have a choice. Live scattered or live structured. Structure creates freedom. That's the key. Now, understand something powerful. When you live fully and intentionally, regret loses its grip. Because regret is born from inaction, from silence when you should have spoken, from hesitation when you should have moved, from compromise when you should have stood firm. But when you act in alignment daily, even mistakes carry lessons, not shame, lessons. Growth replaces guilt. Momentum replaces doubt. That's the key. You are not here to exist. You are here to expand, to build, to lead, to experience deeply, to contribute meaningfully. But none of that happens accidentally. It happens intentionally. And intention requires discipline every single day. You have a choice. Lower the bar quietly or raise it consistently. Wait for clarity or create it through action. Wait for confidence or build it through repetition. Wait for permission or grant it to yourself. You don't need their permission. You never did. Now, let's bring this home. This entire journey has been about one truth. You are not stuck. You are unstructured. You are not powerless. You are undisciplined. And discipline is learnable, trainable, repeatable. That's the key. Identity, repetition, environment, assumption, release, conversation, standard, intention, all aligned, all deliberate, all chosen. You have a choice, and you always will. Every morning, every decision, every response, every habit. Choice is power. Discipline directs it. Intention sustains it. So live fully, not halfway, not cautiously, fully. Live intentionally, not accidentally, not reactively, intentionally. Stand tall in your standards. Guard your mind. Protect your time. Lead yourself first. Because when you lead yourself, your external world follows. That's the key. This is not the end. It's the beginning. Not of motivation, of mastery. Mastery of self. Mastery of discipline. Mastery of direction. And mastery is not loud. It is consistent. It is steady. It is chosen daily. You have a choice. Starting now, live fully. Live intentionally and become the disciplined architect of your own life. Your life is not random. It is programmed. Every pattern you see, success or struggle, began as a repeated thought accepted by your subconscious mind. That mind does not judge. It does not question. It obeys. It magnifies what you repeat. It protects the identity you rehearse, and it builds the reality you emotionally believe. If you keep speaking doubt, you will live in doubt. If you keep rehearsing fear, you will experience fear. But if you consciously choose your thoughts, control your words, guard your environment,
elevate your identity and repeat empowering beliefs with emotion and certainty, your subconscious has no choice but to execute. This is not motivation, this is a mechanism. So here is your challenge. For the next 30 days, monitor every internal statement. Eliminate every limiting identity. Speak only what you intend to become. Feel it daily. Rehearse it relentlessly. No excuses, no breaks. Program your mind with intention or remain programmed by default. Decide now.